On this episode, we're honored to feature James Gibbs III, a versatile and dynamic trumpeter currently touring with Valerie Simpson of Ashford and Simpson. Born in Newark and raised in Irvington, New Jersey, James began his jazz journey at the New Brunswick Jazz Institute. His career took off after being discovered by the legendary Betty Carter, which led to performances at Brooklyn Academy of Music and the Kennedy Center as part of her esteemed Jazz Ahead program. From jazz and R&B to gospel, Latin, and beyond, James has mastered a diverse range of genres, sharing stages with icons like Wynton Marsalis and Roy Hargrove. So join us as we explore James's extraordinary musical journey, his inspirations, and his impact on the global music scene. So James, good to see you.
Definitely a pleasure, man. Hey, look, Abraham, I really appreciate this, man. Thank you so much.
Yeah, my pleasure. So, James, kind of talk to me about where it all started for you. You had to get your first trumpet somewhere. So what was the what lit the candle, so to speak?
You know, wow. I will say this. My journey into music did not start, with like how a lot of people's, my parents were musicians and my uncle, my cousins, and I grew up in church. It wasn't like that at all. It was more like I had a very interesting childhood, is what I'm gonna call it. It was a good childhood, but it was interesting. And whether it's good or not so good. And I think because I knew I was different when I was younger, I think the music came into my life because I wanted to have consistent friends, hopefully. This is gonna sound kind of sad, I ain't gonna lie, okay? So I have sisters, okay? I'm the middle child of sisters, and my neighbors weren't always the best friends on the planet. So I found myself being alone a lot. You know what I mean? So my dad, who is now a retired, long time retired Army veteran, he took me to a parade, um, a Memorial Day parade when I was like 8, 9, or something like that. And it was the marching band, the local high school marching band came down that street, man, and they were sounding great, dude. They had the people in the crowd, dancing and singing and just cheering and all that good stuff. And I was especially intrigued by the trumpet players because they sounded strong. They were playing high notes. They was playing songs that I knew as a little kid that I'm like excited to hear. And I remember just looking up to my dad, like, look, I think I want to do that. I want to play that instrument right there. And it also helped because the girls was cute. I was like, okay, I like them. you
Mhm.
know. And so the way how I was positioned, we were positioned towards the very end of the parade. We had to perform for the Grand Marshals. And so as soon as they was done playing for the Grand Marshals, I saw the band go down about another 30 to 50 feet, and they had like a little jam session, you know, and you start seeing people crowd around them and just like going in. You would have thought it was like somebody won the championship. And I'm like, dude, I want to be a part of that. I want to play that instrument right there. So let's fast forward. I didn't get the chance to play that instrument until 5 or 6 years later,
But you had always
because
been thinking about it like over those 5 years, it was something that was on your mind.
yeah, I mean, that following that year, I'm gonna is either that same year or that following school year. Um, I went to my music teacher because I was old enough to play, and but they didn't. I think the trumpet chairs were all filled up. Back then a lot of people wanted to be in instruments. You know what I mean? Really dating myself right
You
now.
could pick a couple of different instruments, saxophone or flute or clarinet or trumpet, but they have a
Yeah,
certain
but I
number.
couldn't play the trumpet. Yeah, and I felt bad because I wanted to play the trumpet. So I picked the saxophone against my will. My dad didn't fight for me or nothing, but I wanted to be in the music program. And I became good really quick, because I was excited to wanting to learn how to play and just be that person who got validation and attention. You know what I mean? I think that was pretty much um, the emotional setup of this whole thing is that I just wanted to feel valued. I just wanted some attention because I felt like I wasn't really getting it any other way. So I became good really quick. So by the time I got into maybe the fifth, sixth grade, I'm at the top of my class. Like I'm playing better than everybody. I'm doing the daggone thing. So by the time I got to junior high school, it was just off to the races. And then when I picked up the trumpet around 14 in the eighth grade, um, when I tell you that was probably the best day of my life. I already knew how to read music. Only thing that I think I was going to have an issue with was converting from E flat alto to E flat trumpet. And so my trumpet instructor at the time, or my music instructor, he only showed me two notes, the low C and the low F sharp, and that was it. And he gave me a fingering chart, and that was literally my first and only lesson from that point up until I was 35 years old.
When you played the first notes, like, and you could actually make the notes come out of the instrument, were you like, was it there a feeling like was meant for me all along? Like, did you feel that? You know what I mean? Like when
It
it
was
feels like
euphoric.
home, so to speak.
It
Like,
was
did you feel that
euphoric.
right away?
Dude, let me tell you, I can see why, people, love crack. I won't take it, but it was euphoric. I know that was a straight. But let me tell you, man, dude, golly, I can still remember that note, to this very day, many, many years later. And I just remember this world just opened up, the heavens gates flooded open, and the saxophone I still liked because I was comfortable with the saxophone and the clarinet by this time now. I'm very, very comfortable with those instruments, but I needed to learn that trumpet, and I studied that fingering chart like it was the test of my life. And so 3 weeks later, I got from that low F sharp to what do you call it, the C on top of the staff. And now I just needed to learn how to actually play it, as far as like music is concerned. So, thank God for my eighth grade trumpet teacher or music instructor, and he's still living. I'm still in contact with him to this day.
Oh, that's
Um,
great.
yeah, he allowed me to be me, when nobody else would, what I mean? So, and I showed out. So the whole jazz thing didn't come into the picture until maybe another year or two later. But I was in church, I was playing in church from when I was playing out the saxophone up until I was playing the trumpet, and then the jazz thing came along later.
You said you didn't have your first trumpet lesson. Like, I guess you're talking about private lesson until you were 35.
35, my dude. I was
Who gave you your first lesson?
this guy named, I think his name is Patrick Henderson. I was now I'm attending school and I'm teaching at this school at Delaware State University, where I graduated from, and he was one of the music professors there. I'm not teaching music. I'm teaching math, and I'm going to school to get my music degree because I never got my music degree. And I I've never heard a trumpet sound so heavenly like that before. You know, like I've been around Wynton and Terrence Blanchard and Arturo Sandoval and so many of the other trumpet greats, but this sound was something different, you know, and I had to follow that sound and know and see who the hell was playing it like that. And I knocked on this man's door. I introduced myself, and I swear, when he opened up the door, he looked like Ron Howard, formerly from what was that? The movie director.
Yeah, from Happy Days.
Yeah, from Happy Day. He looked just like him, red hair and all this other stuff.
Yeah.
And I started laughing. I thought that was kind of weird. And and I said, "Look, man, who are you?" Like, and I introduced myself. I told him who I was and what I've done and blah blah blah. And I said, "Dude, I would love to play with you sometime." And he invited me back to his office. The next day or the next week or whatever, I can't remember. And when I heard him in front of my face, Abraham, dude, I'm sitting like, where you've been my entire life. So, and I asked him how much he charged for lessons, and it was a very high price. I ain't gonna lie, but you know what? I needed that for something, and he has really like realigned everything that I've ever learned about the trumpet. But he was literally like my first ever sit down, trumpet teacher.
Yeah, and everyone has their story, and yours just happens to be one that was later in life, and that's the thing. Music is timeless, and learning an instrument is timeless. You don't have to be a certain age to start or anything like that. Granted, granted, we usually hear about the stories of people getting their first lessons when they were younger. Yours just happened to be a little different, that's all.
Whole lot different, man. I mean, my thing is for that 21 years that I was playing from 14 to 35, man, I just played it. I mean, to this very day, years later, I mean, I still play it for the joy, that the dopamine hits that I'm constantly getting or I constantly feel every time I play. And yeah, I mean, of course, I couldn't afford like the best trumpets to play on the best trumpets to get the best reactions and in the best compressions and all this other crap. You know what I mean? So I always have to settle for the best bad trumpet that I can find. You know what I'm saying? Because it wasn't a lot of money around. You know what I mean? And
No,
even when I started,
I get it. I mean, I'm a guitarist, so I grew up going to school and people had guitars that were, when I was in music college,
yeah,
$5,000, $10,000. The most I could ever afford was like maybe less than $1,000 or something. So I get it.
yeah, I totally understand, my dude. Look, let me tell you. To this very day, I'm playing on good, trumpets now. They ain't the greatest, but they're pretty good, and I can handle them very well. Um, but even to this very day, man, like, trumpets are going, 10, 20, even $30,000, and I'm like, man, I hope this trumpet knows how to cook a meal. Like, this
Yeah,
is crazy.
exactly. It's like yeah, it's like putting a down payment on a house.
That's what I'm saying, man. So, I mean, I think I am going to flirt with the idea of getting one of these really expensive trumpets to see if it's going to almost play itself and just play all the ideas I have in my head without me really having to play it. you
Yeah.
know? But I'm flirting with the idea of going with the much higher brand trumpets to see if it actually, if it's live up to its hype.
Yeah, I mean, I got a guitar that like maybe about a year ago that was made in 1985, and they just don't make instruments like this anymore. I mean, they do, some would say, but there's not the way they used to make them back in the 80s, and there's something about it. It just helps you get the sound, you kind of hear in your head a little bit.
Really?
So
Okay.
it's an investment, I think.
Yeah. I mean, my thing is, man, my music career has been very, God, dude, I'm going to say it's a street with a lot of those ridges in it. When you drive down the street, I hate,
Yeah.
much my music career, you go, then it's smooth, then, and, but,
Well, I think everyone feels that way though, or most
I,
do.
well, you know what? I would say this, is there a blame on that though? Because I would, now that we're having this conversation, if there was a blame, in my humble professional opinion, Abraham, I'm about to cause some controversy. I think it's our fault, man, as musicians, because it's our fault, but it's not our fault because a lot of us were taught by the elders to take the music very, very seriously, and not, there was a saying. I don't know how old you are, but I'm 47.
I'm 37.
37. Okay, so you just kind of came out of that time period, but I will say that back in that time, um, you was a little baby at this time. I will say that the most of the elders were always teaching us, and this probably happened when you was playing too, to pretty much if you were an entertainer, you couldn't play, and if you didn't entertain, you could play. You know what I mean? So if you stepping on that stage and you doing some Cab Calloway tap dance steps and playing your trumpet or the guitar, you were considered not being taken seriously as a musician. But if you went up there like Miles Davis, looking like you about to enter a boxing ring, you know, you playing your instrument, that's when musicians and people was taking you seriously. And I
Yeah, well,
think that,
there is a problem too. Like, I mean, people, when they go to hear music, they, even though you're listening, they hear with their eyes, if that makes sense.
yeah, in today's times, yes, more than ever.
You have to look a certain, but I think no, I think it's up to the musicians to dress appropriately, and and that part counts to how you present yourself. That's so important.
Right, right. So I mean, because going back to our original point when we were talking about the ups and downs of being a musician and why things, my route was very, rigid, and I'm going to call it. I'm going to say that because I believed the lies, I believed the hype. I went up there, to be serious and to be taken seriously and all that stuff, not knowing that one day when I go and sit in those seats to check out a band or an artist or whatever be the case, I realized, holy crap, I actually want to be entertained as well. I want to hear all the stuff, but I also don't want to look at a stage at a bunch of musicians looking like they're giving the first heart transplant. Like, this is not how this is going to have to work here,
Yeah, I think there's a happy medium between being entertained and also getting the level that you're talking about with a certain seriousness and intensity.
Right. So I made a conscious decision around that time. I was probably in my early mid 20s. I said, look, I'm gonna start entertaining. You know what I mean? I had to learn how to entertain, of course, but um and then when I think back to all of the artists and bands that I played with, um, most of them were really good entertainers. You know, like my professional career started with Betty Carter in her Jazz Ahead program. And so I'm 5'8", so Betty Carter has to be a good 5'2", you know what I mean? And this little lady, man, can get on that stage and not only entertain the heck out of an audience, but leave an audience mesmerized and hypnotized to her sound, you know what I mean? And she had a really, I'm going to say, a perfect happy medium with the quality in the music, the level of quality, and her showmanship and her artistic stylings of her vocals. You know what I mean? I mean, perfect combination. You know what I mean? So by the time I stepped on stage with other either celebrity and non-celebrity artists or bands, I noticed that there was a common thing that made them who they are. But there were also people who I stepped on stage who were very, very non-entertaining, but they had a name for themselves. You know what I mean? So, you just kind of have to like find your niche and see where you can, how you can balance it all to make sure that the people who are sitting in them seats, whether it's 10,000 or if it's just 10 people, you want to give them all a great experience.
Yeah. Well, if you're doing what you're supposed to do, you're working. You're getting calls for things, and because you're taken seriously and you present yourself well and you entertain, as opposed to, those who don't consider those other things may not work as much.
Right, right, right. So I mean, I would love for where are you? I'm based out of Jersey. Where are you based out of?
Me too.
Are you in Jersey? Okay. So yeah, I would like, to
You may
see.
not, we've played together like jam sessions. You may not remember. This is probably like in a long time ago though, in the
Really, no, I looked at your face and I said, this guy do look familiar, but I couldn't put it together. But maybe we did, you know what I mean? Because I'm like, yo, this dude, because I did look you up online before, before we did
No, we
this.
haven't done gigs. We've just done it, just just jam session, like where
Yeah.
just that type of thing. I don't
No,
even
I just
this
remember
is like
the thing.
a long time ago though.
Yeah. No, look, it's all good, man. And I would just say this, man, like, I just now I would love to see things get better. Um, because the hip hop gospel, the contemporary world has got us beat, 100 billion folds, you know what I mean? Um, and it seems like people want to come to us when their whole life is kind of settled down. It's like It's like you know how old people love the Bible and they talk about God and everything. You know, I think you know with jazz musicians, I think that's when people who always went out to the R&B, hip hop, reggae, and all that stuff. Now they want to settle down with jazz musicians. You know, when they get into their 40s and 50s. You know, as if we're just this. Um, I don't know, like this comfortable outlet because they don't see no hit a rah rah anymore. You know what I mean? Or they don't want to see it anymore. But at the same time, I'm thinking, or I'm saying, what I'm trying to say is, I would like to see more jazz musicians or musicians that play jazz become a little bit more hands-on with the trends that's going on out here, and just like our predecessors did, you know.
Yeah, it's interesting you're saying that because like uh the last maybe about 2 years ago,
Mhm.
I started playing pop tunes on, jazz gigs, whether it's trio, quartet, but I didn't do that for about 15 years since I started playing
Yeah,
because I thought it was like, oh, you're not supposed to do that. But
right.
then it was just kind of like, like I want to try something different. And that led to a whole other thing. And now like there's always pop tunes, always.
Yeah,
And that's when people really like them the most. So it can go from like we might play something, we might play an old standard, then play the Beatles, and then play John Coltrane all in the same set. And
yeah.
that's what I'm doing, right now, the last
Well, I mean,
couple years.
but that's what the music was all about at one point. You feel what I'm saying? So again, Abraham, we were lied to again because you know we were conditioned to play those 80, 90, 120-year-old songs, right? That we've been learning since we first started playing jazz music. That's been remade 500,000 times, through different artists. And it's like, dude, that stuff is back then. Yeah, you can play it and perform it for nostalgic reasons or whatever, but it's really the 80s, 90s, 2000s is where you need to focus on to a certain degree, whether if not those cover songs, but that style. So even if you made music with that type of authenticity, but still kept it authentic with the jazz realm, that's what makes it, that much more exciting.
Yeah, and you're playing the form, you're playing the solos, you're improvising, you're trading. So it's really just the same thing, just different melodies and different harmonies that people know that they love.
Right. But I mean, but think about it too, Abraham. Do you got a solo in every tune? You feel what I'm saying? Does a solo section have to open up on every tune? No, I don't think so. You know what I mean? Like I like playing music from my generation, the 90s, early 2000s, maybe up to like the 2010, 2015s. And let me tell you, man, people they go crazy. I do a lot of reharmonization, with some of these tunes and I'll swing out certain, aspects, because what I do want to do is make people understand like this is still a jazz cultured experience. Don't get comfortable. You're not listening to this. I'm not going to present the song like you've heard it on the radio for for many years. You feel what I'm saying? I'm actually going to present the song that you heard on the radio for many years, but in a totally different genre, to kind of make you, to kind of reel you in, kind of, into the jazz thing. You know what I mean? And let me tell you, man, whether you playing the Beatles to, I don't know, what's my man, Kendrick Lamar or Drake or somebody like that. If you do it, with the respect of the culture and their culture at the same time, and you marry those two together, man, people will love you forever. You know what I mean? At least that's my opinion.
No, this is such a, James, I really appreciate, you telling your story and, your honesty about everything. This has been a, very interesting conversation and I want to thank you so much for coming on the podcast today.
Yeah, dude, look, this is I don't really get invited to do stuff like this that often. So when I do, man, I love to come on, have a great time, and talk with like-minded people like yourself, and just have a good time because I think you know in today's world, man, where we have such a big mental health crisis, Abraham, this music is probably more important now than ever before. And our responsibility, I think our responsibility as musicians now, Abraham, I think we're probably more important than the physician, the surgeon, the pharmaceuticals, the therapists, the shrinks, and all that. I think our role is a lot more important than all those people put together because if we can line them up spiritually, remember, they always say music heals, you know what I mean? And music controls and it centers you. And these people, they can operate in your heart and get you going, and they can give you pills to keep you sustained, and they can talk about your problems just to try to so you can get it out of your system. But the music, I think it will be like, it's to me it's the perfect balance of human
Yeah. No,
existence.
art is vital, and more importantly, music is vital. That's just what it is.
Yeah, yeah.
You don't have to, you don't have to tell me, man. I know, I get it. Yeah.
Yeah, but I think when I hear these type of podcasts from other artists, whether they're famous or not, I don't think they're really talking about that. You know what I mean? In
Well,
my
that's
opinion.
why I have my son. It's called the Rabbit Hole Sessions.
Yeah, and that's what I'm saying. I really appreciate you taking this time out and taking a chance on me, to come on to your show here and spread this message because this is really, really important, my dude. Like it's crazy.
No, I appreciate it.
Yeah.